God, I thank you for today. I appreciate that you have given us this opportunity to come to talk about our beautiful continent, to talk about the country of Congo. God, we thank you, and I just pray for your wisdom. I just pray for your Holy Spirit to really come and to overtake this place right now. And most importantly, we just want to learn, and we just want to grow, and we just want to know how can we contribute to bring about change to our neighbors. So help us out from beginning to the end. We leave everything in your hands. In your precious name, Christ, I pray. Amen. All right, guys. Without wasting time, I'd love to invite my brother, Kabala, or you can call him King. Brother, welcome.
Yes, brother. Thank you, brother. Peace and love. I'm happy to be on your show today, and I thank you. And I thank all the
Mm,
Africans out there who will be listening to us today. Thank you very much.
appreciate my brother. Maybe you can start from here. For those who do not know who Kabala is, we can start from there. A little bit of your background, and then we're gonna carry on from there.
Well, Kabala is a revolutionary Pan Africanist, currently working as a consultant in development studies and research. I have also a background in engineering studies. I'm author of three books. I'm also a member of the African Continental Unity Party. I'm in charge of the global communications. Well, I was born in the, as it can be seen on my name, I was born in the colonial enclosure that we call the Democratic Republic of Congo. So, yeah, that's basically about myself, a revolutionary Pan Africanist. Thank you very much.
Appreciate my brother. Do you remember when this passion started, and how did you get to this to what you're doing right now, and this passionate about Africa and the continent in general?
Yeah, so it's, I think, what triggered me into becoming a fully engaged Pan African or Pan Africanist. It's actually the story of my father's personal story. My father used to work in the diamond company where he was working with the white people. He had a one boss, a white guy from Belgium. Now these people, because it was in Congo, in an area where there was a lot of control, especially towards foreigners. So this
Mm,
guy was actually stealing diamonds and wrapping them properly in a package and giving it to my father to keep. And my father didn't know this was diamond that was being stolen,
mm,
and he would give him at the end of the month once they cross border. And but my father was struggling, was living in a tiny house with a lot of kids, eight kids. Didn't have a proper or decent salary or the proper means to survive, until one day he had the curiosity to open the package after a lot of years. Then he found that there was diamonds, and the guy was stealing diamonds. So that story on itself triggered me to try to understand what is going on in the minds of certain people, for you to work with somebody closer to you and exploit him, stealing and using him for you to steal, and not even sharing something with him. And from then, I had to learn the history of the world, the history of Africa. I got to be interested with some prominent Pan Africanists such as Kwame Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey, Dr. John Henry Clark, Thomas Sankara, Lumumba, and the history of the Congo itself actually was fundamental in shaping my worldviews. And since then, I've never looked back. I think Pan Africanism is the only solution for African problem today, because at this moment I don't believe that there's individual problem. There's no Congolese problem. There's no Nigerian problem. There's no uh, Rwanda's problem. There's no Ghanaian problem. I mean, there's only African problem, and because there's no one individual problem, I think as well there's no individual solutions. Therefore, it is maybe time that we as African people have to shift our thinking from neo-colonialist mindset to that mindset of pan-Africanism that eventually put us on the perspective to look for African solution. And once we find the African solution, we're definitely going to have to find our individual solution. So that has been my struggle, and that has been actually my mission. I've been working on that through the ACUP, as I said, by using the best tool that I have, which is communication. I've been doing that through the Free Minded Pan African Academy, by teaching and training new leaders that will eventually reshape the direction of Africa of tomorrow.
You know, Kabala remind me. I was having a meeting right before this with somebody, and we were talking about United States and Africa as well. And this person was sharing with me all these different like 53 states that are in the United States, but then you have like United States of America, like all of them. These different states is kind of like the countries, like different countries. But then they have this one big country that is basically superpower right now, and you know for a long time has been like that. And then he was actually analyzing the same concept with Africa, and it was saying like, you know, all these borders that we have in our country, it's kind of like, you know, aged man. So it's the man with wisdom. He lived long and he understands the geopolitics and dynamics of everything. So he was actually comparing that to the continent as well. Was saying, you know, all these borders that we have and how we name our countries based on our names, it's just delaying us from moving forward. Because really, honestly, if you think about it, you know, Africa is basically one giant big countries with different cultures, different tradition, different everything. But these borders are making everything worse. And I've been sharing, like, you know, for a while right now that, you know, for example, I'm in Ethiopia right now. Coming here, I had to pay $60, you know, to come here, right? And then I'm watching some videos of some of Canadians who came here just, you know, last month, and they had to pay only $40. So you can imagine that me, African, coming here, I need to pay 60, but Canadian who are non-African have to come here and pay 40. No offense, I don't have anything against them. But I went to Nigeria right before that. I had to pay $150 visa to enter to Nigeria, just from Tanzania to Nigeria. From Tanzania to here, it's only 2 hours. From Tanzania to Nigeria, it's like 3 hours and something. I had to pay 150, which some of the countries, they don't pay nothing. They just go there. Like if you find like United States, they go to a lot of countries in the continent and they don't have to pay anything. Right, so you come to realize that, or I came to conclude that, you know, we really, like me and you, we really fight, and so many other people there, we fight for the union of this continent, and we want to see about freedom coming. I believe a lot of issues that are happening, let's say in Congo, in Ethiopia, you know, in Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, and some countries in the continent, you know, will be able to stop if we're just one, if we're just, you know, united. Well, you deal with them, you know, accordingly. But I kind of feel like we really embrace the idea of, you know, division, and just everybody, you know, fight from their own corner. We don't really want to integrate, and that is delaying everything. It delaying us in economic issues, it delaying us in security of the continent, and everything. So it's very important, the point that you're raising here about, you know, about the unity of this continent.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I think the man that you are speaking about is definitely true. One of
Mm,
the revolutionaries, Pan-African revolutionaries that I look into, Stokely Carmichael, also known
mm,
as Kwame Ture. He said that every independent people have the power to define their own terms and make
mm,
those terms accepted by other people.
mm,
So if you aspire to become independent people, if you are strong people, if you are free people, you have in you the power to define your own terms, to define your
mm,
own reality, and make other
yeah,
people of the world accept your terms and your reality. And when
mm,
people want to destroy you, want to reduce you into servitude, the first thing they want to take away from you is that power that you have to define yourself and to define
mm,
your terms. So when you look at Africa today, we are calling ourselves Congolese, Nigerian, Zimbabwean. I don't know. The question is, who called us these names? Even though
yeah,
we sometimes have our so-called founding fathers, or the
mm,
question is, did they create these concepts that we are fighting each other for today? Did
yeah,
Lumumba create the Congo? He did not create the
mm,
Congo. Did
mm,
Mandela create South Africa? He did not create South
no,
Africa. Did Sankara
mm,
create Burkina Faso? No, he did not create Burkina
mm,
Faso. You see, so we are delving within the concepts or the
mm,
paradigms created by our oppressors, and we have embraced
mm,
them. We worship
mm,
them, and we are killing each other based on these paradigms that were
mm,
defined on us by our enemies. And we claim to be independent nations. This is
mm,
irony. I mean, this is actually beyond the words. So I think if we are true about
Mm.
independence in Africa and about freedom, we need to begin from the basics. We need to redefine for ourselves our own terms. We have to
Yeah.
redefine ourselves, how we should call ourselves. We have to
Mm.
redefine our politics, our economies, our ways of life, and make sure that other people accept what we put on ourselves as a definition, because that is what
Mm.
China does. That is what
Yeah.
Arabic countries are doing today. That is what
Mm.
Russia is doing today. And the world is beginning to accept countries such as China for what they are. Before, the
Mm.
Western propaganda spend a lot of money to demonize the products made in China. But today, all of them, they are running to China to buy made in China. You can demonize
Mm.
them, but you go in every household, you find item made in China. So this is the definition of power. So I think
Yeah.
we have a long way to go. We have good initiatives, African Continental Free Trade, African Union. All these things are important tools, but that are being underutilized. We have to move to with a full speed before the end of
Yeah.
this century to make sure that we redefine ourselves in a way that gives us power and gives us the standing ground for the independence that we are looking for as African people.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I agree with you, my brother. 100%. And I think that is one of my big concern for a while right now. Doing this mission of uniting the continent. Because you mentioned something very important that I've been talking about these days. For these past 2 weeks that I came here, that a lot of things that we're struggling with today, it is because of the seed that was planted, a long time ago, right? Perhaps our ancestors, who we worship them, most of the time, but sometimes as well, we need to hold them accountable, because where we are today, it is definitely because of what they did or what they did not do, right? And so we are reaping the consequences, whether positive or negative, because of what happened. And we, as a generation right now, we are in a very critical juncture to make a decision that is not only going to work for us, because what we're working on right now, it basically, it might not even touch us. Because when you look at the history of China, as you said, when they started this move, it took a lot of years to be where they are today, and now they're a superpower, right, together with United States there. So basically what we're doing right now, the longer we delay, it's going to come to the next generation, and they're going to have to deal with the same consequences, the things that we are doing today. And that's why there's this urgent call that I see that we have everything in a place. Yes, if you look at the African Union, you look at all the Vision 2063, it's good. They sound good, they look amazing, they look great, but there's not really actualizing of these ideas. I was reading one article today written by the daughter of the ex-president of Nigeria, Obasanjo. Her name is Kofo. I'll be having her here, I guess, in days to come to talk about that, because I think it was very interesting. And she was trying to break down on what Africa should do right now, especially when there's a new regime in the United States, and Trump, he announced that no more, foreign aids, going to anywhere, which for me, I see it as a good sign. So now she's actually talking about, okay, how can Africa take this as an opportunity to grow? How can Africa take this as an opportunity to actually do something for the continent? Trump announced that they're gonna start digging, the oil from the United States. Basically, you're having a new competitor coming up, but in the continent we have Nigeria, we have other countries that are doing that. So how can we strive in this environment that everybody right now is like they're looking for themselves? And basically, they've been looking for themselves for a long time. But Africa, we are not really looking for ourselves. We're just somewhere there, always looking somewhere, wanting help, wanting support, and we don't deal with our own issues. In our issues, we still invite them to come and to mingle between us, to try to unite and connect us, while we don't really get along with one another. Just next country, we are talking about DR Congo today. So basically, gonna touch of what is going on there. It seems like we don't have that sense of urgency that this has to happen right now. It's already long overdue. And if we're not doing anything right now, I don't know what we're going to leave for the next generation.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's very interesting. I used to say that God created Africa and the white man created these countries that we have today. That's the reason why we're always running to
Wow.
him to solve our problems.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That's actually really good.
Yeah,
That is really good. That they created it and we're running to them to find a solution. Oh my
exactly.
God. When you
Yeah.
think about it, then you see like it was very intentional. Like they they thought about this like 100 years later. Somebody was saying this that when colonizers came here, they did not just had Plan B. They knew that one day Africans will wake up and will try to fight for the independence. So they thought about how can we trap them into this system even when we are not there physically. So today they're not here physically, but we still use the same system of visa, passports and all these borders, the system that they made a long time ago to separate and to divide us. And we do nothing about the real issue, the real problem. We sit out here, just blaming and complaining that this happened, and that's why that led me to to come up with three enemies of Africa, which I think is something that is really disturbing us. And I think as we moving forward to talk about Ethiopia, we could touch a little bit about that. So I came with this list of three enemies of Africa and who I think they are. The first one I mentioned about our mindset, our mentality, right? That everything that happened to Africa, we have nobody to blame but us because we allowed it happen to us. Starting with colonization, we allowed it happen. Some of our ancestors, some of our people, they sold our people, right? For just a simple reason. This is one of the reasons why Africa was invaded, right? And we remain in that state, and right now we're still struggling with that, but simply because of this mindset of appreciating others more than ourselves, loving others more than ourselves. We would rather treat each other as slaves or somebody who means nothing and treat them as kings and queens, which is very hypocritical because how can you love somebody else if you don't really love yourself? So mindset is the first enemy of this continent. And the second one I mentioned about leadership, leaders. So basically these things are kind of like coming together. So you have mindset, but you have leaders who knows exactly what is happening, who knows exactly what can change this continent. How do I know that? I'm looking at African Union, Vision 2063. You know that they clearly know what is happening. They clearly know what are the solution to bring about change, to bring the continent together, but nothing has been done. It's long overdue, right? And then the third one, I'm finishing with those who are looking forward to exploit Africa, Africa exploiters. So in this category, it could be, it could be whites, it could be Westerners or Easterners or Arabs, it could be even Africans, the group that we don't really, focus on sometimes when we talk about this, external influence. But we have people in the continent who wants to exploit continent, who would rather start conflicts in our countries, raise rage and anger amongst each other, whether it's about religion or tribalism or anything else, or nationalism between one country and another country. They'll rage those angers within our continent because once our people focusing on fighting, then they can do like, kind of like, fixing issues, collateral damages and everything, but they start something in order to create an opportunity to make just extra cash of money, which basically in this category, United States, they're really good at that, taking advantage of that situation and making living out of the conflicts that are happening in our own continent. So here it could be anyone. It could be Africans, it could be Americans, it could be European, it could be Asian, it could be, Arabs, it could be anybody. And so this is kind of a list I came up with. And jumping from that, going to it, I would love for us to kind of like connect, with DRC and what is happening there right now. And even if you have any other enemy, you think that okay, I think that somebody else is here, you can also share. Yeah, welcome, brother.
Yeah, no, beautiful. I think I agree with your list. I think the mindset is everything, is the software. If it's corrupt,
Mm,
eventually all the actions that we see on the ground are not constructive to the agenda of rebuilding Africa. And it's
mm,
clearly visible everywhere on TikTok, on Facebook, and the way we are utilizing these tools just tell you that
yeah.
Africans are not ready for the liberation, because when we talk about liberation is responsibility, when we talk about
Oh yes.
liberation is commitment, is discipline, but most
Mm,
importantly, above all, is a hard work. And we are
mm,
having a generation now of TikTokers. You see, the
mm,
people that we worship in our society are the people who go on TikTok to dance. But when you come with
mm,
the intelligent content, you hardly get, many followers. Now,
Tell
coming
me
to
about that.
your point of leadership, I think that is very important because even
Mm,
Marcus Garvey, the provisional president of the United States of Africa, His Excellency
mm,
Marcus Garvey, he said that every nation, every people have sellouts. When you go
mm,
to America, you find there are sellouts. You go to
yeah.
France, they have sellouts. Chinese, they have sellouts.
Mm,
However, the sellouts in these nations can be found among people who have been marginalized, people who have been excluded from opportunities, people who have
mm,
been impoverished. These are the
mm,
people uh, who are prone to be sellouts.
mm,
However, the point is when it comes to Africa, the sellouts in Africa are to be found not among the poor, not among the
wow.
marginalized, but most
Yes.
importantly, sellouts in Africa are to be found among the leaders, among the
So true.
educated, among
Mm,
the presidents, the ministers. These
mm,
are the sellouts when it comes to Africa.
mm,
These are the people who betray us. These are the people
mm,
who trade our future for their own
mm,
personal gain and their personal comfort. These are the people
mm,
who accept for thousands of people to die. We're talking about
mm,
millions in Goma, in the east part of Congo. These are the people
yeah.
who accept for these people to die, for civilians to die for their own
Mm,
personal gains and comforts. And this is the challenge of Africa. And I think your list is right. I think without a proper leadership, without proper
mm,
mindset, I mean,
mm,
those basic two things, we will get nowhere. We may even actually, instead of handing over a free Africa to our children, we may just
mm.
hand them another slavery, this time around controlled by artificial intelligence and
Yeah, yeah,
robotic, which is very harsh
yeah,
conditions that you can wish for any human being.
yeah. So true, brother. So true, so true. So, about this big country, very rich country, full of good history, good people, full of everything, right? 3 decades down the line, still struggling, with the same thing. The only thing that keep on increasing day by day is the number of people who are dying, keep increasing. The number of conflicts that are happening every time, the number of international organizations that are constantly running into to try to whatever so-called to protect and to bring about peace, and accusations one after another one between the country and another country, the leader and another leader. I was checking out the news today, and listening to these moms, right, who are really crying, and just going through hell, to be honest, because losing homes, losing kids, losing families, just too much lost. What, like, why this is the issue? Like, why this is happening? Why it seems like this is mission impossible to stop what is happening in the eastern side of Congo? Why is that?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I mean, I want to just send my greetings to all the mothers, fathers, children
Mm,
who woke up this morning and they are currently forced to spend night outside, maybe in the bush or on the road, because they had to flee their homes. As we know already, I have family, I have friends and families in the south of Congo. It looks like Goma has fallen in the hands of M23 rebels, backed up by Rwanda's army. Uh, my greetings to all these people who have lost their homes, have lost their businesses, have lost their farms. All these kids whose school have been disrupted, they don't know when they will go back to school. All these people whose life totally turned upside down as we're speaking right now. And the question of the war in DRC, as you pointed out from the beginning, that it has been going on for about 3 decades, sorry, 30 years, which is true. It's um, it's a complex situation, and what
mm,
makes it complex is because you have a kind of a multiplicity of players involved in in the situation in DRC, all of them pursuing different objectives, all of them, having different goals. So it becomes sometimes difficult to understand exactly what is going on and how to properly find a solution or a peaceful solution in the situation of war in DRC, because you want to find a solution with one actor, right?
Mm.
The other one comes and then override everything, eventually brings you back to the square one. You find a
Mm.
solution with this one, which is not which is not making other players happy. So it has been that kind of situation. And to put more clarity in what I'm trying to say, you have a lot of narratives. We have a lot of
Mm.
narrative. For example, there's
Yeah,
a
let's go into
narrative
that.
of,
Let's go into that.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So you have one narrative that is related to the genocide in
Mm.
Rwanda.
Mm.
After the genocide, there were a group of Hutu who
Mm.
went to DRC,
Mm.
so-called Hutu fighters went to DRC. They went with the
Mm.
guns, and then from there they were given a space according to the United Nations Convention on the Refugee. Actually, it imposed uh, that to DRC to
Mm.
eventually accommodate, to host these groups of fighters, and they
Mm.
were eventually hosted in DRC. And then the narrative explains that Paul Kagame, the current president of Rwanda, and its army, they have been trying to cross over the
Mm.
border, to cross the border to go in DRC and fight this group of rebels, because they've been organizing themselves, creating a kind of a background camp so that they can attack back, the regime in Rwanda. This is a
Mm.
narrative, right? That has been there,
Mm.
that has been advanced for a long time. But in the
Mm.
process of crossing the border to attack these so-called fighters, right? Hutu fighters, you have mineral resources being taken, you have people killed, you have children, you have a village vandalized, and you have all this chaos being created.
Mm.
Then you have another narrative. This is in 1997, sorry, when the
Mm.
regime changed in Congo. As you know, Congo previously was called Zaire, led by
Yeah.
Mobutu, a dictator,
Yeah.
backed up by
Z-
the United States of America and France and
mm.
other European countries. And when the Cold War ended, they didn't need him anymore, but they maintained
Mm.
him for 30 years while he was a dictator. He was corrupt, he was everything, but it was their guy, right? So once the
Mm.
Cold War ended, they didn't need him anymore, because the competition between the socialist or communist, as they were called, and capitalist was over.
Mm. Mm.
Then they kicked him out, and they supported another president who was then Laurent Desire Kabila. Now,
Yeah.
before Kabila came to power, they made him sign agreements such as, when he's in power, the east part of Congo must be actually annexed to Rwanda, the most richest
Mm.
part of Congo, which we're talking about today. Goma, Bukavu, that east part must be becoming a part of Rwanda as a country. You
Mm.
see, and when he
Mm.
came to power, he had to sign those things because he was thirsty for power. He just
Mm.
wanted to become, the president, as many of our ambitious people today want to become in a position, but they don't even understand what is takes
Mm.
what takes actually to maintain those positions. So he signed those
Mm.
deals. He came to power, then realized that he made a mistake. Then he
Mm.
reversed that deal. He didn't go
Mm.
according to his agreement.
Mm.
He actually, the first thing that he did, one of the key element of the deals, was to appoint James Kabarebe, who is today the head of army in Rwanda. He was actually the head
Mm.
of army in Congo between
Mm.
1997 and 2001. That was part of
Mm.
the agreement. So it was actually a situation of total control of Rwanda, to control the DRC, right, and
Mm.
control all the politics and military there, and eventually take the east part of the Congo to become the part of Rwanda, right? So when he reversed those orders on agreements, he canceled them, the
Mm.
war escalated. That's where we have
Mm.
rebel groups that were, of course, sponsored
Mm.
by Rwanda, but most importantly, sanctioned by the United States and other European countries to come and destabilize the country And that war
mm,
actually, since it started in 1997, 1998, it's still the same war that is that we're talking about today. Just that the
mm,
players are different. Today you will have the rebel called, for example, MLR, the Army of the Liberation of the Lord or something like that. Tomorrow
mm,
you will have uh, SDF. I don't know how they were called. Today, the other day you will have M23.
mm,
The players differ, but the
yeah,
war almost is still the same. So that's another
mm,
narrative. And
mm,
when you come to uh, the current situation, like the present situation, the
mm,
guy called Nanga, the leader of the current M23, who, by the
mm,
way, was the chief of the Electoral Commission in
mm.
2018. He was the leader, the president of the Electoral Commission of the Congo in 2018, right?
Wow.
He is now the revolutionary leader of this rebellion. uh, when you look at him or at the scenario,
Mm,
the context of this chaos,
mm,
you realize that there's another narrative, which
mm,
is a kind of a vengeance or retaliation, because when the regime changed, he
mm-hmm.
had mining concessions in that part of the country, and those mining concessions were taken over by the government, or by the not even by the government, I
Mm,
should say by the current leader. He took them off.
yeah,
They were confiscated by the current president. So for
yeah.
him to retaliate, he had to go in bush and then eventually consolidate with the rebel, or to join the 23 movement,
Wow.
rebellion, and then come fighting. So you see, there's multiplicity of players and narratives and objectives. And apart from that as well, you have another narrative, which is the Western powers trying,
Mm,
as always, they've always been doing, actually, since the
mm,
post-independence period, trying to
yeah.
destabilize the country. In most cases, the aim
Mm,
is not to purchase, to buy the resources of the country, but to get them for free, and on
mm,
the process having millions of people killed, a genocide. We have to call that
yeah,
as it's supposed to be. And this
yeah.
actually, it was properly explained by Dr. John Henry Clark, as he said that
Mm,
Africa is the richest land on earth, and Africa has things that many want, mostly
mm,
Europeans. They want,
mm,
and they cannot do without what Africa has, and they have never
mm,
wanted to pay for what Africa has. Therefore, they will always find a way to invade
mm,
Africa. So they may not
mm,
even do that physically, because there are a lot of
mm,
Negro out there who are ready to take on the job
mm,
of killing each other on behalf of
yeah.
white men. So there's no need for white men to come with this army in Congo and kill people, because there are a lot of Negroes out there ready for that job.
Mm,
So it's easy and it's
mm,
cheaper to do that, right? So this is what has been happening in the DRC. There's a lot of reasons, there's a lot of players, and there's a lot of complexities that have to be properly understood, that even make the solution itself complex on how to go about solving that problem.
yeah, yeah. Let's dive in into the third narrative, because I've heard something that um that is very interesting, and I think it's my actually my first time, to know this. So always we had M23 rebels. They were there, right? When did this who used to be a leader of the previous government actually decide to go and to join these rebel groups? And 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 who was the leader, perhaps, back then? Because he came basically from the government, basically is betraying the government by being betrayed, right? And joined the rebels, and now, um this narratives is really, I'm having really hard time to get this.
Yeah, so I think it's somewhere around early 2022,
Mm,
when eventually he couldn't meet his his interest, or his center of interest was actually uh, taken over by the current president, right?
yeah.
And then he had to find a way
Mm,
to retaliate. And because you're dealing
yeah.
with the president, there's no way you
Mm,
can take him to, I don't know, any courts, because the justice system is under the president. So the only way
Exactly.
for you to deal with you want to go to the bush and join already the narrative that has been there of rebellions, and then
Mm.
joining them, and
Yeah.
eventually take the guns and start to fight under the narrative that you have come to liberate people. So this already tells you the type of leaders that we have in Africa. So from
Yeah.
all the narratives that I've explained, you have a situation of
Mm.
Africans who are taking advantage over other Africans, like from the first
Mm.
narrative that I've explained, and the second
Yes.
one, right?
Mm.
Of because
Mm.
look, Africa belongs to all African people. It's easy for
Mm.
us to sit down to say that what, there's resources
Mm.
here. How can we utilize them collectively to benefit the continent?
Mm.
But when you have a situation where people want to take over, and not just to take
Mm.
over, but to dominate, because
Mm.
domination will always give birth to exploitation, and
Yeah.
it leads to a situation where other Africans are looking at themselves as superior, or
Mm.
adopting the supremacy mindset of white people have colonized us, to then apply
Yeah.
that on other fellow Africans. So
Mm.
that is the type of people that you have. And the third
Mm.
narrative tells you the type of leadership that we have in Africa, that
Mm.
manipulates people for the personal interest. Because now the people that I've spoke from the beginning, who have lost their homes, have lost their
Mm.
houses, they've lost those things in the name of individuals, not even the
Mm.
country. Because I don't even think that those mining concessions that were confiscated have benefited
Yeah.
the whole country. I think they only
Nope.
went for the interest of the leader, of the single leader, right, who took them
Mm.
over,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
So these are the
Mm.
war between two elephants that now getting the whole nation into a kind of uh, jeopardy, right? People have
Yeah.
lost their businesses, all these things in the name of people who want to retaliate because their interests have kind of been disturbed. And the
Mm.
last narrative of the Western powers trying to create
Mm.
always a conditions of destabilization. It
Mm.
supports the narrative of white supremacy that does
Mm.
not want to see Africa liberating itself. Because one
Mm.
thing that you need to understand is that Congo, I mean, the whole Africa is rich. So
Mm.
if you want to leave Africa to breathe on
Mm.
itself, to tap into the resources that it has, we only
Mm.
need 10 years. And with the proper leadership, of course, you only need 10 years for
Yeah.
Africa to be transformed, right?
That's true.
Uh,
That's so true.
exactly. So for you
Mm.
to keep the conditions in the world of underdeveloped countries and developing and the developed countries, you have to make
Mm.
sure that whenever you have a new regime that comes into power, before even it
Mm.
begins to implement its strategy of development, it has to
Mm.
worry about war here. It has to worry about some diseases that have been created. It has to worry
Mm.
about rebellions. That is what is happening
Mm.
in Sudan. That is happening.
Mm.
That's what is happening in Ethiopia, where you are. That is what is happening in
Mm.
the DRC. That is what's happening in Mali, Burkina Faso. All these countries, you find that they are terrorists. If they are not terrorists,
Mm.
they are rebellions. If they are not rebellions, they are sanctions. All these things are strategies of the Western monopoly or Western hegemony to keep Africa worried about war, fight,
Mm.
diseases, hunger, and not being able to properly utilize its resources to create the conditions of a proper development.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. So what is your view, and especially right now, with what is happening currently in DRC, what has been happening in Goma? What is your opinion, and what is your view in what is happening? What do you think is happening right now?
Well, what has happened now, as we have heard, is that the rebels have entered the Goma, the capital of Kivu. They've
Mm.
entered Goma, and the national army. We don't know exactly what is happening. There was a general who was the governor, military governor
Mm.
of the town, who was assassinated, I think, 3 days ago. So there's a
Mm.
lot of conflicts, and there's a lot of conflicts. So I cannot clearly point out to an external enemy without really looking into the internal enemy
Mm.
who is actually creating and maintaining the condition of vulnerability that allow
Mm.
the enemy to
Mm.
come to do, I mean, to create chaos. So
Mm.
exactly, I mean, what is happening now, that is what is happening now, and we don't know
Yeah.
exactly what kind of strategies that the government in place will put in place. But I think there's always one solution for me.
Mm,
There's always one solution to the problem of security in the Kivu, which is to
mm,
strengthen the army, because even
mm,
the blue helmets, the UN peacekeepers who were there, they have run away while they've
mm,
been paid 6 to 10,000 US dollars per month. When the war
mm,
broke, the enemy came, they ran away. They couldn't
mm,
fight. And we wonder why they were paid so much money and for what reason. And we have other military sections on part of the African Union,
mm,
coming from South Africa, Angola. All of them are there
mm,
under the pretense to secure the country and to make peace, and they
mm,
are being paid a lot of money,
mm.
but we don't see the results. So
Nothing has been done.
it's
Yeah.
more like, yeah, it's more like what the strategies that the current regime of
Mm,
President Tshisekedi has been utilizing was to make use of the very same people who want
mm,
the chaos to persist because they are benefiting from the chaos. He relies
mm,
on them to end the war, which actually is beneficial to them, right? And
mm,
this has been a very, very wrong strategy. For me, I
mm,
think the solution was to strengthen the military, the national army, the
mm,
capability of the army to eventually take care of the
mm,
security issue of that side of the country. But we can notice that there have been negligence, because when you go to Congo, you almost, when you go to Congo from Kinshasa to Goma, you can almost
mm,
think that you are in two different countries. When you go to
mm,
Kinshasa, it's party, it's celebration, is all these things, and you go to Goma, it's desolation, and the power is centered in
mm.
Kinshasa. So it's like, as long as there's a peace in
Yeah.
Kinshasa, these leaders are not worried about the
Mm,
lives, about the conditions of our people, about the suffering of the people
mm,
in the east part of the Congo. So it's kind of a mixture of all these things: of bad leadership, irresponsible leadership, with the with the global hegemonic powers, with other African around, such as
mm,
Rwanda, sometimes
mm,
Uganda, trying to take
mm,
advantage of that situation. And
mm,
you can understand that in the white man's understanding of international relations or global politics, brotherhood does not exist. Friendship
mm.
does not exist, only interest.
Yeah.
And if
Only
those
friends.
interests imply that people must die, then so be it. And that is what is happening. And that is, I think that is the philosophy of Paul Kagame. He's
Mm,
trying to understand where his interests lie, right? And if that implies that villages have to be burned, people have to vandalize and killed, all those kind of stuff, well,
mm,
he does that, just that. And in the logic of white supremacy, it's understandable, because that is how they understand international relations. So the Ubuntu philosophy that we're talking about is just in the mouth, on the books, but when it comes to practice, I think Africans
mm.
have really have embedded, or have been embedded into the Western thinking paradigm than into African philosophy or the way of life.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen I mean, the UN have actually accused Rwanda, and this is not the first time to do that. Also, the president of DR is, basically kind of like declare, war and everything. And I remember like 9 months ago, I was watching on this interview that Kagame was doing as well, and he said the same thing. He said that if they want war, we are ready to go for that. So for the past like 1 year, there've been this escalation of all these threats and all these things that actually they are showing us where we are going, right? And for us as a citizen, as a people, it's a shame. It's a shame because when you look at our leaders and how they talk to each other, what they're planning to do, as if we are not part of the picture. That okay, if this war is going to happen between these two countries, people are going to die, and not you. It's us you're going to die, right? So you kind of feel like it's two people like trying to boost for each other. You know what I'm saying? You can come after me, I'm gonna come after you, but not really them, because they're not really fighting, but our people, right? We're gonna lose a lot of people, and I want to know what your stand on that, because we hear these things. For me, I was a little bit every time when let's say in external forces intervene the conflicts that are happening in the continent. I'm always very careful because I don't fully trust what they say. And that's why I always, have this conversation with the Africans, people who are coming from the continent to get perspective from the people. Like, what do you think is happening? Because I know their job is to always fuel, this tension and this war because they benefit from that, right? I see what is happening in the western side of Africa and how France, even how France have been trying so hard to work with ECOWAS to make sure that these countries are paying for what is happening, which is actually good for the people, but they're working against us. So I don't really trust them. I don't even listen to what they say because I know they don't say it because they love Africa or because they want peace for Africa. No, it has been a multi-billion dollar business for so long time, Africa being in in these conflicts. And I think you said it very well that they don't really come and do their things. They're just out there and controlling everything that is happening. And because of our mindset and because of how we entertain them so much, we just do that, right? Our leaders are coming there, but they don't really work for the interest of us. They work for their own interest. Then basically we could talk about what happened in Kenya, what really happened with the president of Kenya, right? That this guy who he was a very symbol of pan-Africanism, everybody believed, even including myself. And I remember I made the video in a room like this, talking about why Ruto should be protected at all costs, and then eventually just find things are going in a different direction. You see the same thing in Nigeria, same thing in every country. So I really want to hear your opinion on that, on what is happening right now. How much do you think this involvement we're talking about with Rwanda to, what is happening right now in DRC?
Yeah, so look, the involvement of Rwanda into what is happening in DRC cannot be denied. It's as we're speaking right now, the military's Rwanda army in Congo, or not other way around. However, I think the plan to destabilize the Central Africa, not just the
Mm,
Congo. Maybe the Congo is the hearts, right? As
mm,
Franz Fanon said that if Africa is like a pistol,
mm,
like a gun, Congo is the trigger, right?
mm,
So the plan to destabilize Africa in general, and mostly the central part of Africa, I
mm,
think precede Paul Kagame. So in other
mm,
words, I want to say that even if Kagame is taken out today, the Western imperialism will always find other players to
mm,
continue the work to destabilize Africa. That is the main
mm,
agenda when you understand the geopolitics and how all these things started. Actually, look, for example, during the in the previous century, in the 1900s, in
mm,
apartheid, during the apartheid time in South Africa,
mm,
what was the role of the South African government? Was to destabilize other countries that were aiming for independence. That's why
mm,
you will find that apartheid army was involved in Angola, in Mozambique,
mm,
in all these countries, even in Zambia, in Zimbabwe, all these countries that were trying to fight for independence. South Africa
mm,
was used by the United States and allies as a kind of an arm that will create the conditions of destabilization. Now,
mm,
from 1994, South Africa transitioned from apartheid regime to a
mm,
democratic, so-called democratic regime. And already the
mm,
Western thinkers, the Western hegemonic powers, had to quickly
mm,
think who can replace the South African regime to
mm,
continue with the mission of destabilizing the continent. Because now
mm,
South Africa is going into the hands of black people. We don't know what they will do. We don't know what
mm,
kind of philosophy they will adopt, especially since ANC was known at that time to have a socialist orientation. So they had to
mm,
think. And I believe the country that was then chosen to continue that agenda, not even the country, because if I use the country, I think is a bad concept because I'm including all the African who are who found themselves in Rwanda have nothing to do with this dirty politics. I think the
mm,
individuals or the leader or the regime that was chosen to
mm,
continue with this duty of destabilizing the continent was Paul Kagame and his regime. That is
mm,
why you will see that Western will talk about democracy and regime change, all over the continent, but him, they don't question. And he has been there for about 29 years, if I'm not mistaken. But for him, they don't talk about democracy. Sometimes they even praise him. You go to Burundi, the same thing. Museveni has been there for 30 plus years. They don't talk about, about the rule of law. They don't talk about democracy. Yes, but yet when you look in Burkina Faso, Mali, these countries that have been taken over by these revolutionaries, already they are under pressure to organize elections. What is the difference? So for me, I think the role of destabilization of the continent shifted from South African apartheid regime, even though the white monopoly controlled businesses in South Africa are still eventually extracting resources or wealth out of African countries and to send them to London Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange. That money does not even benefit into South Africa. So what I'm trying to say is that role was shifted from South Africa onto Paul Kagame and his regime. And that is what they have been doing. You want to create this chaos, this situation of fear, terror among the people to the point where now the people in that part of the country, Goma, will look at the incapacity of the Congolese government to protect them, to defend them, and they will look at it as a reason for them to eventually accept the projects of balkanization of the country, because that has been on the paper for a long time. That's the reason why I say that this project predates Paul Kagame. So for me, of course, Paul Kagame is to be blamed for this, but he's not the main player of it, because he can be replaced tomorrow, and after tomorrow there will be other players to continue with the same projects. You see, they did the same thing in Sudan. They said Sudan is not democratic, is this and that. For Sudan to be properly managed and to be democratic, it has to become two, South Sudan and Sudan. And we know what is happening today in both the countries. It's chaos, but yet the petrol, the oil of that country continue to be exploited, right? It is the same thing. They said Congo is big, cannot be managed. It has to be broken into pieces. And that's what they're trying to do now. But because they can't just do it directly, they want to keep people in the situation of oppression. And eventually people will give up on the government or on the loyalty toward this government and will reclaim to have an independent state. Maybe from that, from independent state, they'll be able to end the war and massacre that is taking place over there. So I think it's a complex situation, but when you understand it from a global perspective and from the hegemonic ambition of the United States, you will realize that it is aimed at maintaining Africa as a whole in a condition where Africa is only a reservoir of natural resources that Western countries want, and is at the same time a dumping market for the products that have been produced in the West for consumption in Africa. So we cannot use our resources to produce what we want or what we consume. We just have to be there to consume what they produce for us, and our resources are taken to prepare the future of European children.
Yeah. Since we know, right? At least we know all these, narratives, and we pretty much know what is happening right now. Why do you think it is? It seems like almost impossible for the government of Congo to stop what is happening in the eastern side of Congo. Like why they can't stop that? Because obviously I want to believe that the Congolese government, it basically have a big army than M23 that are residing in the eastern side of Congo. Otherwise the entire country will be, overtaken, and they will take over the country and just lead and guide. But why it kind of seem like it's very difficult to do that? Because we spoke before that you have different troops there. You have United Peacebreakers, I call them like that. You have this SADC group as well has been going there. There was a time that even EAC troop wanted to go there, but I believe the president, he actually refused for them to go there. But why it seems like it cannot be stopped? Why it seems like the government of Congo cannot really take care of what is happening there? Because we know what is happening. Okay, we know where it's coming from, but why it cannot be stopped by the current regime or even previous regime as well? Why?
Yeah, so there are a lot of reasons that support the narrative of Western imperialism, trying to maintain the status quo for economic exploitation. The first reason is that as we're speaking right now, Congo is under embargo since I think 1997 or something like that. Embargo to buy arms to equip itself with the military capability to fight the war. So that's already is a major problem because look, you want people to defend themselves because that's what we hear from the Western medias. They want Congo to be free and to defend itself, but yet you keep sanctions or embargo on the country so that it cannot buy weapons to protect and to defend itself. So already that's a major reason that cause a kind of hindrance to the capability of the army to fight and to win the war. And the second reason is that there are sellouts, as I said, within the Congolese government or the Congolese army who are benefiting from the chaos that is taking part in the east part of the Congo, because you must understand that this war is not taking place on a desert, on a place that is empty. It's taking place, it's happening in a place where you find coltan, you find gold, you find all these resources. And some of the Congolese, including in the army, they are involved in the destabilization of the army, because you may think that the rebellion group is small compared to the Congolese army, which is true. But today, war is fought on the ground of proper information, technologies, and proper tools. So there's information that these rebels have about the Congolese army's position, strategies, and before even they begin to fight, they are already finding themselves under kind of ambush. So they are the connection of all these things. The Western sanctions over Congo to equip itself militarily speaking. Secondly, the sellouts among the Congolese in the Congolese army and the government. And thirdly, also the very important one, the irresponsibility of the Congolese leaders to understand, to come up with the intelligent strategies to end this war. We have seen during the past 6 or 7 years of the current regime, what we saw was extravagant trips made here and there. It's almost like people were enjoying being received on red carpets here and there, being celebrated as president and stuff, and without really focusing on what is going on in the country. Look, you have a president of Burkina Faso. Since he came into power, he has been invited here and there. He doesn't even move. Why? Because he prioritized the economy of his country. Because the trip that he has to make to go to New York, for example, can cost like hundreds thousands of US dollars. So he wants to invest that money in strengthening his army, because that is where actually the solution is, right? He wants to invest that money into the agriculture. That is what proper leadership does. But what we saw in Congo is people traveling all over the country. There was a year where the president spent more days outside the country than inside the country, and those trips cost $1 million of US dollars, right? For what result? We don't know. So I think there's been already a lack of willingness also from the leadership to build a capable army that is able to fight, to defend, and protect the country. So you have the interconnections of all the combination of all of those reasons. You have the sanctions, you have the sellouts within the army, and you have also irresponsible leadership. That's the reason why we are in the situation in which we are today.
Yeah, there's something I want to go a little bit back. You mentioned earlier that Rwandan army is actually in the inside of Congo. What kind of Rwandan army you're talking about? Is it like something that has been there for a while, and why are they there? Is it like
No,
clear? Yeah.
no, but the current M23 rebellion is supported by Rwanda army. So they have support, military support, and personal support of Rwanda army, intelligence support of Rwanda army. And as we're speaking right now, They
mm,
are together. They've entered the Goma,
mm,
the Goma town as we're speaking right now. And
mm,
okay, what is also even interesting in terms of Burundi army is
mm,
supposedly fighting side by side with the Congo army to to eventually chase the rebellion, the M23 rebels out of
mm,
the country. But it's crazy. There's a statement that was made by I think the son of the president Museveni, who is
mm,
I think in charge of the uh,
mm,
uh, Burundi army. He made a
mm,
statement such as if Congo tries to get some, I don't know, mercenaries, according to his wordings. If it tries
mm,
to get the mercenaries to go to Goma and try to push back, there will be those mercenaries, those white mercenaries will be shot dead because they are enemies to Africa. So already you see the interest
mm,
that are not aligning with the
mm,
with aspiration of the Congo army, and it comes back to the leadership style that we have in the country. What is
mm.
in the mind of the leaders, and what do they what are they trying to achieve? And I think these are really open questions that we'll have to
Yeah.
find answers as we go with time.
Yeah, and it was so. Therefore, what do you think is the end goal to all of this? Especially, we're talking about the M23 rebels who are actually capturing Goma. Right? I mean, they've already taken out Goma. The what do you think is the end goal? That's the first question. Second, I want to bring out the perspective of PLO Lumumba. Um, about this matter. He has spoken, multiple times. I don't know if you had a time to listen to him. But there's one scenario that he explained about what is happening in the eastern side of Congo. Yes, he acknowledged about all these people who moved away, during genocide. The first narratives we talked about from Rwanda, and then went there to find a shelter. And for him, he addressed it as this is the political issue. It's a political issue in a way that these people who are residing in this eastern side of Congo, the government of Congo is actually not recognizing them as Congolese people. And I think that's where the entire problem began, because they've been there. So basically, it's like they moved long time ago, and they had kids, they had children, and everything. They were born there. That's the only place they know. I mean, these new people who are coming out. But then the government, he was bringing out about the easy solution to. I mean, the solution, what might seem to be a solution to what is happening, is basically recognize these people as part of the country, and they should have all the rights as people of the country as well, because this is their land. And what would you say about that perspective as well?
No, great. So from your first question as to what I think is the end goal, so I think I have two perspectives. One is
Mm,
a Pan-African perspective, and
mm,
one is a kind of emergency perspective.
mm, mm,
I think immediately what I think the mistake that has been done from the side of the Congolese leaders is that they've been working more in a position of defense, and
mm,
rather than in a position of offense. Of offensive. If I'm clear on that, because
mm,
the best way to defend yourself, according to the scholars of warfare, is to attack actually your enemy. So I think if we count 15 or 10 millions of people that have died in Congo, in that eastern part of the country today, it has been mostly in terms of incursion, where a group breaks in the country overnight, vandalize the village, kill the people, mutilate the women and the kids, and in the next morning they go back to Rwanda or in the bush and they hide. So I think what has to be done now is I have to honestly speak the truth, because this is the way
mm.
to end this, because
Yeah.
I understand that power respects power. So what
Mm,
has to happen is that Congo I mean, not Congo, because this among politicians, I agree there is a political issue, as Pierre Lumumba mentioned it. I think politicians in the Congo must be able to create the same chaos in countries that are responsible or that are indirectly responsible because they've accepted to be utilized by Western imperialism to create chaos. So Congo must be able to create the same chaos in those countries, a situation whereby overnight people broke in some villages, burn things down, create chaos, and people run away, find themselves in a bush, and then before before sun is up, those people must go back where they came from. So when the situation begins to happen in both sides, I think there will be uh, a proper perspective, or I should say, there will be a proper way of these two leaders to understand each other, to talk and to find a true peace because the situation is even. But when you deal with a situation where you are always complaining, working on defensive position, not being able to also threaten your enemy, you're always going to negotiate in that position of weakness, and you cannot end the conflict. So coming back to the Piolo Lumumba's assessment, I think we have to make a difference between an internal kind of ethnic conflicts with the national kind of political orientation. Look, the people that he spoke about, those people, they are, as we're speaking now, they're holding Congolese citizenship. Those people went to election. So how would you say that they are not being recognized as a Congolese? However, that's why I said you must separate ethnic tendency from a broad national orientation. However, there are some key leaders in the regions that will say that, okay, these people are not part of our community. And that's understandable because in every country, you may find that kind of protectionism or that ethnicity. You can find that in Africa. So you have certain people that will speak that these people, Banyamulenge, they are not belonging to us. They came from Rwanda. They came from here and there, which is also a neo-colonial mindset or neo-colonial way of thinking. But I don't think that the Congo as a country or the Congolese government has denied these people citizenship because, as I said, these people have gone to election. These people are living in the Congo as we're speaking now. These people, there's no case where Congolese army has gone to these people because we know that where they are. You know, we know their villages. There's no a case where Congolese army has gone into these people, vandalized, killing these people for the fact that they are from Rwanda. No, there's nothing like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to disagree with you in the first point that you raised, and I appreciate
Mhm.
that you're honest because that's how exactly majority of people feels, like how you express yourself, that power respect power. I truly understand where that is coming from, but also there's other perspective in that in the narrative that you shared, that then one side it could be like, okay, all of us, you're going through this, so why don't we sit down and make sure that everything is okay, is but another perspective of that is that this could be the beginning, of everything to go to, like everything to end, right? Because I believe I believe of where it comes from. It kind of like come from the place of revenge, come from the place that, okay, I've been going through this and nothing is being done from what what is happening to me, then the same thing has to happen to you. And we don't really know what will be the end goal of this unless we see it happening. It could end like what is happening in Sudan, because Sudan basically is just a fight between two powers, two leaders who wanted to bring their issue all the way to the land, and as a result, millions of people have been displaced, which is the same thing in Congo as well. So many people have been died, have been killed, millions of people, and a lot of people have been displaced. But this, if we take down this road, what we are saying right now, then I think when you look historically, when you look in the continent, you know, there'll be only blood. I don't see the other way around. What is, if anything is going to change, I think there'll be even more blood than what we see right now. We'll be talking about millions of people from from both sides and everywhere, being killed. I think there must be another way that could be, taken to really stop what is happening.
Yeah, so the other way, I think I forgot to mention it was, as I said, I have two perspective. One is Pan-African perspective, and one is kind
Mm,
of an emergency perspective. Look, but let
mm,
me just mention something on what, or make a comment on what you've said. Already,
yeah.
we are counting about 10 million plus that have been killed during this situation. So, when do you think that is the right time to apply force against force in order to create peace? European Union that we are uh, maybe sometimes envying today.
Mm,
Uh, some years ago, not even more than 100 years ago, European Union was in chaos. French were
yeah.
butchering themselves with the Germans. Germans were butchering themselves with the British. It was a chaos. It was bloody. Even when you listen to the national anthem of the French Republic, which was eventually composed during those times of wars, the national anthem is barbaric. It's about
Mm,
vengeance. It's about blood. It's about killing. So and it is from that war, from that context of war, extermination among themselves, that they have been able to understand each other, to respect each other, and most importantly, to unite and to create the European Union that we're talking today. So sometimes
mm,
I think that the colonized mindset of some African leaders have not yet been properly groomed to understand the importance of African unity and where it can lead us. All that
mm,
they want is to use the same mindset of Western hegemonic power of
mm,
down looking on themselves and killing each other for personal interest. So you cannot tell me that this is wrong. It might be wrong, of course, but in the context of today reality, how do you end this war? You must apply
mm,
force against force, because maybe that's the solution. Because nothing guarantees that with the current status quo, the Congo is not going to be broken, because already we have lost like 10 million people. Children
mm,
are fatherless, motherless, and their education is compromised, and it
mm,
even creates more burden to the continent than the other way. So
mm,
the situation is already traumatic. We've lost a lot of people, and
yeah.
there has to be some radical solutions to address the immediate solution, right? But as I
Mm,
said, as a Pan-Africanist, I don't, I feel terrible in my mind the idea of an
mm,
African killing another African. For what
yes.
reason we don't know, right? So as a
Mm,
Pan-Africanist, as I said from the beginning, today there's no even Congolese solution. In
mm,
reality, there's no even South African solution. There's no even Rwandan solution. The reason I'm saying that is because when you understand the world, you realize that we are fighting against international imperialism. The
yeah.
forces of neocolonialism that we are fighting have been globalized, have been internationalized, right? So that
Mm,
one single country, such as Rwanda, such as Burundi, no matter how hard you try, no matter how good you are with your economy, you won't be
mm,
able to overcome imperialism. You won't be able to overcome neocolonialism, which is a global agenda, and develop yourself or free yourself. It is impossible.
mm,
The salvation for these small countries that I call colonial enclosures, salvation lies in the unification of our armies and
mm,
building of the continental army that will defend the whole continent. And that is
mm,
my Pan-African perspective. But for us to be able to get to that point, we need
mm,
to you need to strengthen each other. We need to sharpen one another, and that can be by means of dialogue, but it can also by means of fighting each other, conflicts. It's all part of peace, right? You
mm.
cannot talk about peace without conflict. So that is how I look at it.
Yeah, I truly understand that, but my issue with that is that um when we get to there, um then I kind of feel like this is what I see. I kind of feel like we are taking a responsibility and putting on somebody else, because we have mentioned, for example, in this conversation of what could have been the reasons of what is happening in the country. And I want to say this: even if we take that situation today and then we actually manage actually to bring about peace between two different nations. But I don't know, for some reason deep inside my heart, I kind of feel like we're still going to have an issue in Congo itself. Why? Because there's still things that are need to be done inside the country to really stop what is happening. We mentioned different narratives, and most of them, it's kind of like, okay, it's kind of like the issue. I'll just give a simple example. It's kind of like the issue of colonialism, right? In the issue of colonialism, you have different perspective, right? You have people who believe that colonialism, it had to happen to Africa for Africa to be where it is, right? I'll mention different because right now I'm in Ethiopia and I see what is happening, right? You have a group of people who put 100%, blame on what is happening in Africa and what is going on even right now because of colonialism that happened. And also you have a group of people who actually believe that, okay, everything that happened to Africa, Africans are responsible. We opened the door. We made that happen. And I think myself, I'm running, I'm in this third category, that I believe that everything that is happening in the continent, with whatever, Western influence that is happening, colonialism that came to the continent, it is because first of all, because of that, disunity that we're talking about all the time, but it is because there were people who actually were working against our people. I can take an example of my personal tribe and where I'm coming from. So I'm coming from this one tribe, in Tanzania called Hehe, and I just traced my route. A couple days ago, I found out that we're originally from Ethiopia, Hehe tribe, right? And so this tribe, we had one chief who used to be called, Mkwawa, Chief Mkwawa. He was a very brilliant man. Yeah, and he fought actually a battle with Germans the first time they came, and he actually beat the heck out of them, and he won over them the first time. Second time, those Germans, they went back home, they retreated, and then they came back with so much force. But also they knew that, okay, if this guy beat us out of nowhere, we are not gonna be able to overcome this guy because these people are very united, are very like are one. We can never get through them no matter how much weapon we have, right? So what they did is they had to go after certain chiefs in that region called Iringa. So they went to some chief and they kind of like made some deal with them, and eventually there were a group of chief who did not agree with Mkwawa at all. So tension already started to happen in the region even before they came back for the second time to fight him. So when they arrived there, already there were already misunderstanding within the country. I mean within this region, one region called Iringa, and it was very easy to actually attack them. So they basically just came and they went somewhere on the mountain and they call all the people. They're like, "Hey, come! There's some gift, from white people you need to receive." And as usual, these people, they went all the way to the mountain to receive these so-called gifts from the white people, and all of them, they were killed right on the spot. Eventually, of course, Mkwawa, he had to kill himself as well, because he did not allow for them to kill him first. So he had to take, his life. And this is kind of like, my belief when I look at this is just a history of one tribe and one region. But when I look at the history of the entire continent of different countries that I had an opportunity to visit, I'm basically seeing the same thing, that there's some place we open up the door, and it is almost impossible right now to shut that door, because that poison that is there among ourselves, that hatred that we have towards each other, and ideas we think about this tribe and these people and that people, the house that is divided among itself, it can never stand. So even if today we separate ourselves and trying to create peace for each other, I'm really concerned that we might not be able to prosper as much as we can unless we I lost my brother for a second. Unless we really fight for the second solution, talking about the unity, you know, of our continent, so that our people can really be decolonized in their mind, and understanding that if I trace my roots back to Ethiopia, uh, that is to tell us Africans that we are really one people. We're really one people. Our ancestors, at that time, most of them, they were hunters, so they had to move to different places in the continent and they settled somewhere. and as a result, new tribe or new kind of like generation were created there. But in fact, we are actually one people collectively. When I look at Congo, Burundi, Rwanda, I'm looking at these are actually the same people, right? It's only these little borders that are being placed between Rwanda and Burundi and Congo that are separating us. You see, there's Tanzania, there's Uganda, there's Kenya, but you're looking at these people, we share the same culture. Basically, even our languages are kind of like similar. If you go to Congo, Lingala, and then you go to Rwanda, you have this Kinyarwanda. Basically, we share a lot of words in Swahili as well. Basically, it's this same words. Like you find out, like we can even understand each other to some point, right? Guys, I lost my brother, so I just keep making my point. But I believe he's listening, and everybody is, I mean, here who is watching. So this is the point, and this is the concern. I don't believe that violence against violence is going to bring peace. I don't believe that. And I think this is one of the things that between MLK and Malcolm X, they differ in that strategy, even though both of them, they we celebrate them as very heroes of our race, and what they started for our continent. But I think my brother Kabala, you're leaning towards Malcolm X, and I'm leaning toward MLK.
Yeah, sorry, I think my network is fluctuating, so I lost you for a while. Yeah,
Yes,
so
brother.
I think I look at myself as a pragmatic Pan-African. I believe that Africa needs to be united, but I also believe that we have some people among us that have to be written off for
Yeah.
Africa to truly unite and stand as a strong. Because it's not every, this is my understanding, it's not every African who is my enemy.
Mm,
I mean, who is my friend or my brother, and it's not
mm.
every European who is my enemy. So that's why I'm saying
That's
I'm
true.
very
That's true.
pragmatic Pan-African.
That's
There are
true.
really a lot of us who
Yeah, I
are
agree with you.
black skin but white brain
I
operating,
agree with you.
and
100%.
their agenda is just about looking after their own interest, and as well as fulfilling the agenda of their master. Unfortunately, so this is what we are. Yeah, this is what we are facing right now. When you look at Paul Kagame, because look at this. Um, Even though he's being praised for a good leadership, which is true, he has to take some marks for that. But the question is it really sustainable? Because one day one day he may die, or one day he may leave the power. So are we sure that the people who will come after him will be able to maintain the same standards of leadership that he has? Or are we even sure that people who will take over Congo tomorrow after tomorrow will be able to forget everything that has happened from Rwanda's participation in the destabilization of the country? It's going to be a reverse, because country, I mean, look, you can build a country today and tomorrow it can be destroyed. We know what happened in Libya and other African countries. So what is happening, his kind of good leadership that is being spoken about is not sustainable. I think good leadership is that leadership that bridges the gaps, that unites people, that create a sustainable peace, and that is the leadership that we want in Africa. Not a leadership that takes advantage over other people, that exploit other people, killing your fellow Africans for yourself to be marked as a good leadership. Look, Rwanda today is a producer of gold, but Rwanda does not have a gold in its soil, right? Rwanda today is a producer of coltan. It doesn't have coltan in its soil. So, and how does it get to become producer of all these things? Because of its participation in the destabilization of Congo, and of course, exploitation of the mineral resources and the killing of the people in the Congo. So we cannot close our eyes to on these things. And I blame him as much as I blame the leadership in Congo. I don't excuse anybody. So for me, if I had my way, some of the leaders in Congo had to be hanged in public in stadium, because that's the best way to deal with these people. Because we are at the stage where if we as the African masses don't stand up, unite
Mm,
and act for our future, Africa has no future. Africa has no future. And we cannot hope in these leaders. And this statement that youth is the future is wrong. I believe that youth is the present, because when they tell you that youth is the future, they put your mind to sleep to believe that your responsibility or your duty is tomorrow, is not today. No, the youth is
Mm.
the present of Africa. And I think the youth in Africa need to stand up, need to deal with the bad leadership, and need to impose its own agenda of African liberation, African emancipation. So I understand your perspective, but
Mm.
I try to be more realistic in a sense
Yeah.
that there are other Africans who are willingly participating in the projects of African destabilization and destruction.
Yeah.
So those Africans have to be dealt with in the language that they understand, which is the language
Mm.
of terror and violence.
Mm. I'm feeling like obligated to share something that you shared about Paul Kagame's leadership. I think most of you, you know that last year we had an opportunity to go there, and one of the concern that I had, or one of the big question that I had, is that, brother, what you shared, that my big concern, it was, what is it gonna, like, when I was going there, was I was going there with this one point, like, one thing to find out, what is it gonna happen after the regime of Kagame, in in Rwanda? Because, as a third perspective, and just in Tanzania, that was my concern. When I'm looking at the Rwanda, he's doing pretty well. I see things are going well from the outside, but I'm like, but what is it gonna happen if this leader leaves? It's the same concern I have for Uganda as well. What is it gonna happen? I mean, at least in Uganda, you see, like, okay, in all these countries, you kind of see like someone is being prepared. But when I got there, I'll be very honest with you. When I got there, um, I saw something very different, which I had to, and this is not something that I had like conversation on, online or whatsoever, but I had to go around the street to really ask people, like, what do they feel about the leadership and the current leadership that is happening, I mean, in Rwanda. And I did not meet, I mean it, I did not meet a single person who spoke anything bad about Kagame. I did not meet it. Like, everybody that I met, Rwandese, they were worshiping him, they were praising him, and they were celebrating him. I remember that time they just finished the election, and they were about to have like a kind of like inauguration, after some time, and they were talking. They were like, "Hey, we're getting ready. Everybody will be busy in the city, and they'll be like, "Hey, we're getting ready for the wedding ceremony." And I was like, "What kind of wedding ceremony are you talking about?" But they're talking about the day of inauguration, because they're so happy that Kagame, he is the president again, and they don't want anybody else to become a president. That's one thing that I noticed. And the second thing that I noticed is the leadership structure in the country, and who are really in the leadership regime. Like, most of the leaders who are like ministers and everybody, they're not old people. They're actually youth, young people like me and you. And I came to realize that these people are being like everybody in like the system, the structure of the leadership, and how they're working, and how they're disciplined. Like, leader can actually line up in the bank. Not just because you're a leader, you cannot just go, front and go, like, most of our countries and how they operate. That first thing. Even on the road, actually, if there's a traffic jam, you can also remain there in the traffic jam as well. And I had an opportunity to talk to the minister of health. He's a very young guy, and he came. He was giving the projection and the map of where Rwanda they wanted to be and everything. And this guy, he was down to earth person, something that I never experienced. I mean, in so many places that I went. When you go, like, you could see this mindset of these leaders who are working in the same regime. You could see the mindset of the people, because the entire leadership and people, they're really working for the people, and people are happy with their regime. So from the outside would look and actually say that, you know what, you're staying there for a long time, you need to get out of the regime. But then when you go on the ground, the people want him to be their leader. The people want him to stay there, to continue to be the leader. That's one thing that actually changed my mindset, before I went and after I came, because I saw the reality on the ground, and what what do the people think? So I have to assume that not everybody will be, willing or will be open to, speak everything. But I had to find out from the very ordinary folk who do not even know, like, who is this person or who is that person, to really just satisfy myself. And so even when I was coming back, I remember I made a lot of videos, and I was talking about, I think there's something really important that, the rest of Africans can learn, especially, when it comes to leadership. Not about staying, over power, long on the power. No, but there's a certain elements of discipline. There's certain elements of accountability. And I went through this, I would say, these policies that they were made in, right after the genocide, to put the country together, and how can we get back to where we are right now. It is here, and how can we can get even farther to where it is. And I was looking at this, and I was really fascinated, because it's something that I don't see, like, in our countries, like, really our leaders, putting together, this is where we want to go. So I kind of felt like obligated to share that, because that was the same thing that I had in my mind, but the reality that I
Yeah,
found on the ground, unless if there's something
yeah.
else new that I need to learn, over the time.
No,
That
no,
was my
let me.
reaction.
Yeah, no, let me say this, brother. I think you're right. That's why I said that he deserves credits for an aspect of his leadership. There are some leaders who steal the money and send
Mm,
it to Dubai and overseas. But at least,
mm,
though he's ripping his neighbor and then
mm,
he's using it to build his country, it's good. But the point is, is
mm.
it sustainable? Is asking in terms of him
Yeah.
exploiting his neighbor and to build his leadership profile. Is it sustainable?
Mm,
Because one day his neighbor can also rise and say, okay, I'm taking vengeance on these people,
mm.
because whatever that is happening here, that has happened here, was taken from me. So it's not sustainable, especially in the context of peace in Africa. But look, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I heard you. I think your the questions that you had with the people, the discussion that you had with the people in Rwanda and what they told you. Look, I
Mm,
don't I don't think we need to be deceived. Mobutu, the guy in
yeah.
Congo who stayed in power for 35 years, he was being worshipped. Actually, there was no president
Mm,
in Africa that was worshipped like that guy. But the day that he was running out of the country, people
mm,
and even soldiers, they
mm,
threw stones at his airplane.
mm,
So I can tell you also a number of people that I know from Rwanda
mm,
who are living outside of Rwanda who speak badly
mm,
about Paul Kagame, who actually want him
yeah.
like in hell as we speak right now. So
Mm,
um, people are very interesting when you deal
yeah.
with them, especially when it comes to politics. Firstly, they have short
Mm,
memory. Secondly, they become more obedient
mm,
and more fearful when they are
mm,
threatened with luck,
mm,
and the combination of those things um, can give you the image of what you can expect in people.
yeah.
And don't forget that there are opposition leaders who are being,
Mm,
actually sidelines in Rwanda.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
all those things have to be put in context for you to understand the reality. People can tell you,
Mm,
they can think maybe you are CIA, you are the agent of the
yeah.
states repping for.
Yeah.
But regardless, I think
Indeed.
the marks have to be put there where they deserve. I think he's a
Mm,
disciplined, he's
mm,
dedicated, he's a patriot to his
mm,
country. And if the whole continent, all the leaders can have that level of dedication,
mm,
patriotism, and discipline, and I'm sure that Africa will be transformed just like China is
yeah.
being transformed. Because
Yeah.
what we need today in Africa is rebuilding Africa. And
Mm,
when you want to rebuild a continent such as Africa, just like in any
mm,
projects of building, you need people
mm,
who are disciplined, people who
mm,
are hardworking, people who are
mm,
committed, people who are
mm,
dedicated, and people who love what they're trying to build. And that is
mm,
what we lack among many African leaders today. We have people
yeah.
who are lazy, they don't work hard. Some of
Yeah.
them even in the leadership position. We have people who like easy success, or easy success in terms of getting power today and tomorrow I'm millionaire, you know,
Mm,
but they haven't worked hard. We have people who have the mindset of getting to power, and all that is in their mind is that I'm gonna sell the mineral resources and get money from the United States. They don't even think about what can I do to transform the mineral resources locally so that I can create jobs, create
Yeah.
development. And that is a reality that we have been seeing in the DRC for many
Mm.
decades. There's no
Yeah.
that mindset of transformation, of innovation, coupled with hard work, dedication, discipline. You see, we don't have that. We have we have chaos, total opposite of what is happening in Rwanda in terms of leadership. However,
Mm.
Paul Kagame still need to be blamed for
Mm.
his responsibility in the genocide in Congo, and that's everyone has spoken about it. There are documents about it, and I don't feel
Mm.
like I have to hide behind the words to mention that because I'm a Pan
Mm.
Africanist. The
Mm.
philosophy of Pan Africanism is Ubuntu. It means I
Mm.
see humanity in you as an African person, as I recognize
Yeah.
humanity in myself. So
Mm.
even if I need to develop my country or my house, I shouldn't
Mm.
do that on your back or
That's true.
on your suffering. I
Mm.
actually need to lift myself up together with
Mm.
you. But that
Mm.
is not what we see in Rwanda. That's why I mentioned the
Mm.
coltan of Congo that is making Rwanda the producer of coltan. It doesn't have
Mm.
coltan, the gold, and all these mineral resources. So we cannot ignore those facts and to
Mm.
look into a good leadership because even Hitler was a good
Mm.
leader. But for what
Mm.
purpose? You need to answer to yourself, right?
Mm.
Even
Mm.
if even who King Leopold
Mm.
of Belgium was a good leader for his country, but for what objective, right? Or on the back of
Mm.
on back of what? A back of destruction, mutilation of Congolese people. So we have to put all these things together before we can. I mean, so that we can make a proper analysis of these leaders that we have in Africa. So we need really leaders that are entrenched in the philosophy of Ubuntu,
Mm.
humanism, and leaders who understand that Pan Africanism is the only solution. And if you believe in Pan Africanism, there's no need for you to destroy other countries because Pan Africanism means we rise together as African nations. So there's no need for you to undermine others for your own
Mm.
sake because you are
Mm.
exposing yourself alone to the forces of Western imperialism or now today, maybe Eastern imperialism, and you won't be able to overcome. That's a
Mm.
reality.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. I get it, brother. I get it. And what I'm thinking right now is that the more I'm having conversation about this, it's just getting more complex. You say that when you begin that this is a very
Yeah.
complex issue, and when I started this live stream, my hope it was to at least for our people, because me and you, both of us, that people, we don't have issue against each other. We don't have that.
Yes.
Like if
Yes.
you go to Congolese, they don't have personal issue with Rwandese people. When you go to Rwanda, they don't have personal issues with Congolese
Of
people.
course, actually, I mean to visit Rwanda actually this year in June. I should be in Rwanda, of course. There's no
Yeah,
issue between us. That's why I said
yeah,
these are elephants fighting. But
yeah.
unfortunately, we as a people, we are
We
being
pay the
victimized.
price.
Exactly.
And we pay the
Exactly.
price of the and that's why for me, I started this movement, because what we focus from the bottom up. We don't really focus from top to bottom. We focus from the bottom up. That's why in this conversation, I would rather have this conversation with ordinary folk, because those are the people that I want to touch, right? I remember when I started, today, if I'm just ordinary, I'll never have a chance to go maybe to CNN or BBC, to share my view about what is happening. There's
Mhm.
certain kind of profile people that will be there, and that's why we started this community, to have really ordinary people to go to talk to them, to ask, and to get. We are not even we haven't even started that mission, to be honest. Like, but we are, we're planning
Yeah.
ahead that we're gonna be, doing in that level, a couple years, or a couple years to come. So I'm thinking about the people, our people, which is my concern, that we most of the time we don't really have issues with one another, and we love one another. I live outside of the continent. I see, like, basically, I see Congolese, Rwandese, literally, like, just together in harmony and peace, nothing. But politics, um didn't to be honest, I'm even running out of words, because
Yeah. That's why I said, look, that's why I say the problem comes from firstly our leaders. That's why I say that Marcus Garvey, uh, who is one of the 20th century greatest revolutionary leader, um, he said it clearly. I mean, when it comes to sellouts in Africa, don't look in the masses, look in the leadership. Those are the
Yeah.
people who betray the same agenda of African
Mm,
liberation and African emancipation.
mm,
So it's then maybe comes back to us, African communities worldwide in different countries, to organize ourselves, because the true liberation and freedom of Africa, uh, lie in the hands of the masses, not even the leaders.
mm, mm.
We have been electing them for over 60 years now, and we don't seem to see a difference. When they move one step ahead, I mean, one step forward in 1 year, the next year they move three steps backward. That's what we have been seeing in Africa. But because we don't analyze, we don't really realize it. So I think
Yeah.
the best solution lies in community organized organizations, as you have emphasized what you are doing. So I would encourage you to really focus on the masses,
Mm,
because the masses are the ones who have the last word. Or
yeah.
when we talk about revolution, it's supposed to be the masses, and
Yeah.
because we are the majority and we are the most affected. And I
Mm,
think we, as maybe upcoming leaders in
mm,
Pan-Africanism, our mission will be to bridge communities, to create the
yeah.
bridges
Yeah.
between our communities, you know,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
create platforms where people can begin to understand each other. Because
Mm,
when we listen to all this propaganda, politics
mm,
on the media, we may even
mm,
think that every person in Rwanda is your enemy. Every person
mm,
in Burundi is your enemy. No, there are
yeah.
people who are suffering there as well, want change,
Mm,
right?
mm,
Same as
mm,
we also, whether you are in
mm,
South Africa and Ghana, we want to change. So I
mm,
think it is time that we do the Pan Africanism of the people. I think the
mm,
Pan Africanism of the leaders have failed. It is time
yeah.
to do the Pan Africanism of the masses. That's
Yeah.
how I see Africa getting out of the 21st century
Yeah.
successful and victorious, and most importantly, on the right path toward what we call development, progress, whatever
Mm.
you call it.
Yeah, exactly. 100%, bro. I deeply agree with you. One of the message that brought me to Ethiopia right now, apart from, Yeshi Gabicha, that we did this Sunday, but every time, whenever any country I go to, I always have a message. I always get a message. And a message for Ethiopia right now, and generally for Africa, that I got is that, the beauty of Africa is Africans. Like when you
Mhm,
think about Africa and talk about it, you start talking about these, historical places. You talk about pyramids. You can talk about the highest mountain, Kilimanjaro. You can talk about culture. Talk
mhm.
about languages. You can talk about everything. But when you think about the beauty of Africa, it's not even about this continent, because Africa is people, right? Wherever you are, like you could be right now outside of Africa, but still representing, the people, because you're an African, and wherever you go, Africa comes with you. Africa is within you. It's not really this place, but it's within you. Wherever you go, you carry that with you. So the beauty of this continent, what makes this continent beautiful, is the people. And when the people
Yes.
come together, when the people love one another, when the people look at each other through the lens of Ubuntu and through the lens of, compassion, and just, what, let's get this together. Let's get through this together. Push forward one another, not really pulling each other down. Just because, my brother, you're doing good with your business, then, I don't need to support you. I don't even need to come to your restaurant, because I would rather go to Italian restaurant right there, but not go to the local restaurant of my brother. And not because you don't have a good food, but because I just don't. We don't have this culture of supporting one another. And as you see in Indian communities, or Arabs
Mhm,
community, even Chinese community that we see everywhere right now in the continent. In Tanzania, we have a lot of Chinese, and they have these gym places to work out. And you will go to one gym, you find Chinese people. They are there. They're paying money monthly, but they don't do really anything. They just go there. They will talk. It's kind of like community, just talk and to gang against each other, and then they go away. And I'm asking, why we don't have this culture, we as a people? Because if we bring together, if we as a people are united, if we as a people have that compassion, towards one another, first of all, we're not gonna kill each other in our own countries. Second, we're not gonna kill each other against one another. Third, I think we'll put pressure on those who are in the authority to actually bring about change, and that is what happened in the western side of Africa. Like the people have spoken, and Ibrahim Traore, who is actually the favorite president right now in the entire continent, he finished his 1 year term, but people, they want him for life. We want you to be there. The mistake that they were made through Thomas Sankara, it seems like right now they've learned from that, and they are behind their own leader, and you could see things are changing there because people have spoken, masses have spoken, and things are actually going in the right direction. And that is my wish. That is my wish to to Congo. That is my wish to Ethiopia. To Rwanda, to all countries in Africa, that we need to start seeing one another like that. Like we are actually one people. And all these things, we need to come to an end. And I think the main issue, again, the main issue, I forgot this point to point out earlier, is that even the leadership structure that we have in the continent, it's basically about savior and master. We might not have white people here, but the system that is there, leaders are not really there to serve. They're there to be saved, and they have all the power, which is supposed to be opposite. The power is in the people, because the one who votes will give them power to lead us. But when they're there, it's upside down. And so we cannot really do anything as a people. We want things to change, but since power is in them under this one thing called constitutional power, then they're like gods, and they do whatever the heck they want to do, and we're here. Unless people wake up, like the western side of Africa, what they did, and just change everything. And that's why you can believe that the problem, really problem we have in the continent, the enemy, is that mindset. So if you take an example of Burkina Faso, people woke up that no, we need change. In Niger and Mali, no, we need change. And they spoke, their mindset change, it transformed the leadership, and you have completely different leadership. So things can actually move in the continent if our mindset change. Because if our mindset change, then we'll have the leaders who are actually aligning with our mindset as a people. And the only thing you'll see from that, of course, you're gonna pay the price, because we see what western side of Africa, they're paying the price, terrorism every single day and everything. But it is worthy for the next generation. 10 years from now, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger will be completely different place. It's not gonna be like the rest of Africa. We're gonna be wondering, like, is this Africa really? But because of of that price that they're willing to pay, but also laying down everything and just work for the people. So I hope this, all this systematic leadership that we have in the continent, will really transform. And the leaders, I know they're listening to this, and to know that people have awakened right now, and they truly need change. And if they're not willing to aligning with people's voice, then they don't have to blame when people stand up and demand change. They don't need to blame anybody, because we're really tired with everything that is happening.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to say this to end with that. The context of leadership. Firstly, I think the biggest scam in Africa was to believe that we were given independence. As I said earlier on, that
Yeah.
independent people are the ones who define for themselves their own terms and
Mm,
impose or make them accepted by other people. So we believed the terms
mm,
that were defined for us by Europeans, such as you are now
mm,
independent. And
mm,
by independence, what happened is we kicked out of country the administration, the colonial
mm,
administration, but
mm,
colonialism did not end. What we
mm,
got rid of was the presence of colonial administrators on the
mm,
continent. They had to leave.
mm,
So we
mm,
continually living under what is called coloniality. So, in
mm,
other words, the leadership that we have or that we have had since the post-independence period were just the
mm,
replacement of the white men. So white men
mm.
shifted and black men came.
Black
The
men
structure
sat on
is
the
the
same
same.
chairs.
The
Mm-hmm.
operations is the same.
Mm.
The system is the same and produce the very same results, where
Wow.
Africa is impoverished and the wealth
Mm.
of Africa builds the Western
Someone else.
world.
Mm.
And the context in which this operates is a context of terror and
Mm.
intimidation in a such a way that I used to tell people,
Yeah.
even if you put Jesus Christ as a
Mm.
president of one of these
Mm.
countries today, tomorrow the kids, young people will be marching on the streets asking for
Mm.
his resignation, because
Mm.
it's not the problem just of individual leaders, it's a problem of a
Yeah.
system,
The system. Yeah.
right?
Mm.
So, and the system, as I said, is a system that work with the terror and
Mm.
intimidation in such a way that if they
Yeah.
put you like you today in a
Yeah.
power, like you are the
Mm.
president, you
Mm.
already made aware of your duties towards colonial powers. They will tell you
Yeah.
they expect ABCD from you. And if you
Mm.
don't do that, you may end up overthrown, like Kwame
Mm.
Nkrumah, or
Yeah.
assassinated, like Thomas
Mm.
Sankara, so forth and
Mm.
so on. So this is the condition in which our leaders find themselves today. They are being
Mm.
terrorized by Western
Mm.
powers to do this and that. So that's the reason why sometimes they will promise a lot of things. And when they go to power, you
Yeah.
see the policy they're trying to implement go against the expectation of the masses. So, and this is possible simply because we, as the masses, we haven't been able to organize ourselves to
Yes.
also create the same paradigm of threats towards our leaders, because they are being threatened by the colonial powers, but they don't
Yeah.
feel threatened by the masses. Instead,
Yes.
they manipulate the masses. But if we can organize ourselves and
Mm.
create a condition where the leader feels that, okay, if I don't do what the people expect, I may end up being overthrown or being killed, right?
Mm.
In the same way that they feel like if they don't do what the Western expect from them, they may end up overthrown or overthrown or over
Mm.
being killed. They will have only two solutions. One
Mm.
is I'm here, I do the right thing to meet the expectations of my people, as
Mm.
I've been meeting the expectations of the
Yeah.
the lobbyist group in the West, or I
Mm.
resign, I quit, because I may end up
Yeah.
being killed by my own people or
Mm.
end up being killed by the Western, as it has been the situation in Africa for a long time. That is why I
Mm.
say that if us as the masses open our minds today, as you said about
Mm.
mindset, we will
Mm.
begin firstly with the Negroes in the leadership position in Africa. We will hang
Mm.
some of the ministers in Congo in public. You wake up in the
Mm.
morning, you find like 5 of them being hanged and the crimes written on their chest. You do
Mm.
that the next week, and I'm telling you, the Africa will begin to change. Because look, the situation, as you said, when you read
Mm.
the Agenda 63, you see that these leaders, they understand what is going on and they
Mm.
know the solution. If in fact
Mm.
they know, because people used to say that we need to speak truth
Yeah.
to power. No, you don't have
Yeah.
to speak truth to power. The power knows the truth, and it is power
Mm.
because it knows the truth and it's manipulating the truth to keep you impoverished. So we don't
Mm.
have to speak truth to power because these people, they know the truth. We have to
Mm.
speak truth to our people, and if people know the truth, I'm telling you,
Mm.
the revolution is tomorrow, and that
Well,
revolution is going to be bloody.
mm. Mm. Man, having this conversation, um, we really have a long way to go. And I was following very closely to what was happening in Western Africa. And man, the price that those people had to pay, when I think about the entire continent and where we are at, my wish, my wish is that our leaders will just hear the cry of the people and we respond to that immediately. I think you said something very, very crucial, very important. That they are for them, Westerners and all those guys are more scarier than ourselves. They
Yeah,
most of them are afraid to be stopped to go to America, trips to France, because they prefer to go there all the time, but they will rather stay here in the continent with the people saving money and working for the people. Why? Because they don't scare nothing about the people here. They have power, right? They can do whatever they want, but there's somebody else's like you say something very, like, yeah, very very interesting. That is, I'm actually, I think I'm gonna think a lot about this. Yeah, very different perspective. I didn't think about that, but I think I'm gonna have some time to think about it, to collect my thoughts, and to really digest it. Because what you say, I think there's so much truth into that. Um, that it's too comfortable. Leadership in the continent is too comfortable. That's why today, if you want to be rich, you just go to politics and run for the office, because that will be the opportunity for you to have power first, and second, it will be a place for you to hide whatever you do in business, because nobody will hold you accountable, and the people are sleeping, so they're not gonna say anything, they're not gonna do anything. I remember just a couple months ago when Gen Z of Kenya woke up and did what they did in Kenya. You could see even the solution that the President Ruto had to come up with, even though a lot of people had to pay the price, but he had to bring out something that people would agree. I don't know how it's up, what's going on right now. I think we're gonna need to have a conversation with Kenyan people, this soon. But yeah, the leadership is supposed to be very, very uncomfortable position. I once said this before, that the way you see homeless people, how they look like, that's how leaders are supposed to look like. You don't come to leadership and gain belly. Why do you gain belly? Like,
Mhm.
what are you doing for your people? You have a lot of people sleeping without nothing. They don't have food. They're dying because of hunger and everything. And you living in a comfortable mansion and don't care about nothing. It's too comfortable for them, because they have people who basically are not willing to serve the people. They're there for different agenda, to just create legacy for themselves and family, and that's it. Once they're done, I'm done. They can move to any country, in this world, and somebody else have to fix the messes that they created, and also create another messes, for
Yeah.
themselves. And so we are in the same cycle, that we are in the same place. We lack the vision of the countries. We don't have, like, let's say, my single country like vision of 1,000 years to come. So everybody comes with their own agenda, comes with their own policies, and just mess things up like that. We don't have continuity of the development and whatever that is happening. The vision of the country. Where are we going as a country? 50 years from now, where do we want to go? Do you want to still struggle with electricity? Where do we want to go? Which
Mhm.
kind of country we want to have? So I think you raise up really important point. And I think for everybody who is watching, you could we could actually digest on that, and perhaps another time when you get a chance, because I would love to continue to have this conversation with you, my brother, simply because we have different perspective. And I love that, because that's how we can learn from one another. Like, basically, me and you here is the entire continent, because we have different perspective, but we can always learn to agree to disagree, but we can always as well learn from one another, hearing each other. And I think this is kind of conversation that it needs to continue in the continent. Not to be scared, not to be worried, but we need to have deep and very heavy conversation, so that our people can hear the truth and take whatever they want, and also power can know that we actually know what is happening, and anything can
Mhm.
happen anytime. So we should always, you know hold each other accountable in our position, and eventually bring about change, hopefully, in our continent. My brother, if you have anything that you'd love to close remark of this discussion, and anything to share, well, you can go ahead.
No, thank you, brother, for the opportunity and for the time. Actually, we agreed for 1 hour, and I can see we are over 2 hours. It was great to
Yeah.
to talk, and we just scratched the surface. There are a lot of things to talk when it comes to Africa. I think in
Mhm.
departing, all I would say, I just really send my thoughts to those who are suffering in Sudan, those who are suffering in Congo, those who are suffering in Central Africa, those who are suffering in Ethiopia, Somalia. I just wish them peace. And I really invite all those who call themselves Pan Africanists to begin integrating our movement to create continental movements. There's no way you will be a Pan Africanist if you are not part of an organization. So it is time that really have to, we as the leaders of Pan-African movement or Pan-Africanist movements have to pave a way for our communities to understand the importance of unity and collaboration. So I thank you for what you have been doing. I've been watching you. You've been doing great. And I
Mm,
hope that as we are moving forward, we'll be able to find the conjunctures or find the
mm,
common grounds where we can connect our
mm,
movements and
mm,
amplify, or yes, amplify our activities so that they can have weight, they can have impact on the continent. And
mm,
I say peace and love, freedom and decolonization to all African people, those at
mm,
home, those abroad, and those in the future. If you have two
mm,
shoes, please, it is time that you sell it, and you sell one and you buy a sword, because now it is time for African revolution. And this is the revolution
mm,
of the masses, and we need to do it. It's our duty. That's what Franz Fanon told us, that every
mm,
generation must discover its mission and fulfill it or betray it. I think we have chosen to fulfill our mission. And if you
mm.
haven't found any organizations, join one, because it's only when we are part of organizations that we are able to work together and change things. So thank you very much, brother. I hope
Yeah.
we'll have more time to delve into other issues related to our conditions and how we can
Mm,
change the mindset of our people and create new leaders that will have to
mm.
take Africa where it's supposed to be. Thank you very much.
I appreciate, brother. I know I was supposed to let you go, but area I asked people to drop down some questions. So I think there's something here. Maybe you could, respond to that before you go, to at least give perspective. This person called Sakani B said that what Rwanda has gold and colters, but not at the same level of Congo. And then say Congolese people need to cut, that he used B word. What would you have to respond to that?
Well, what I'm talking about is actually coming from the reports that were published by European unions and other countries in terms of the natural resources. I'm not aware of Rwanda having coltons. It might be true, but not yet utilized. What I know is that there's airports in Goma, nowhere, the airport that is not even controlled by the government of Congo, somewhere around Goma. There were minerals, there are planes actually that land there regularly to take the airports from the rebel controlled areas. And those minerals are taken some place else, including Rwanda, to be then treated and to be worked on, gold and all those things. Where we don't have a history of Rwanda exploiting his natural reserve of gold. If it has it, is not yet maybe being utilized, or not utilized at the capacity that will make Rwanda the first producer of gold in Africa. So I think the person that makes the comment is actually giving a response to the questions itself, because Congo has got a huge reserve of coltan. Then if Rwanda has got some reserve of coltan, then how does it becomes the first producer of coltan ahead of the one who's got huge reserve of coltan? So I think I'll leave it to him to answer. But in any case, uh, it's all politics. It's all dirty politics. It's all, as I said from the beginning, combination of a lot of things. I think we
Y-
have to dwell into finding solutions rather than blaming. I
Yeah.
think that's my perspective.
Brother, do you think one of the reason why, because I think I heard this perspective before as well, do you think it is because of the state of Congo and the series of conflicts and what has been happening in the country? Therefore, a lot of companies or people, they decide to settle somewhere else to actually take there from Congo and run it in different place, but not there in Congo. Do you think that is one of the reason why it could be other countries are producing actually more of what is coming from Congo or what is there in Congo? I give an example, for instance. I mean, it's different case, but about the whole issue of stability. That okay, where is the easy place? For example, I know one of the easy place to open the company, you could open within a day and start a business. It was Rwanda in the entire continent of Africa. You can actually just open a company, through just online, this and this, and then you get all the certificates, and then you can start right away. The system is just, that quick. Do you think that could be one of the reason?
Yes, definitely, because in a capitalist world, when you invest, you
Mm,
do your projection on profits, right? And
yeah.
you have to pay attention on all the factors: the stability of
Mm,
country, the stability of the
mm,
currency, the legal
mm,
system, and
mm,
all those complexity determine whether you invest in that particular place or not. And
mm,
what has been happening in Congo,
mm,
coming from the coup d'etat in 1997,
mm,
dictatorship, and all these things are making the country not a place
mm.
really
For investment.
conducive for people to
Mm,
run sustainable business there, business that you plan for maybe 20 years, 50 years, because people will be thinking maybe the regime will change tomorrow, there'll be a coup d'etat, and I may lose
mm,
everything, because you don't know what the other
mm,
regime will do. And especially when we have that kind of instability in Congo, you don't know exactly what kind of a regime will come and what policy it will. So that is absolutely true. That's absolutely true. But as I said, it doesn't take away the
mm.
parts of, or the responsibility of, destabilization, of sponsoring of war, and of killing of millions of people. That's something that cannot be ignored.
For just a moment there, I actually felt what Congolese people feel. I actually felt for a moment. Just hear me out. That I have a country that is so rich with everything, right? It's the richest country in the whole world in terms of resources. Today, I was reading somewhere that Congo's richness or wealth is it's actually more than United States and actually Europe combined. If you dig down all the resources that are in Congo, and that is just according to all these different researchers, but it could be more than that. And we believe that it's more than that because there's so many different places that are not yet kind of like discovered. You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking that if I am from this country and I have everything, and then in the spirit of Ubuntu and Pan Africanism, what I would want is for my neighboring country to support me to get out from what is happening. But if I find out that, okay, things have been taken away from my country, and being processed in another country, neighboring country, for somewhere else, well, like only richness is being taken away, but there's so many things are going on, nobody seems to be concerned of. My people are dying, nobody seems concerned of. Nobody even seems to bother to stop what is happening while you are taking away what I have. Whether it's you or somebody else, but even myself, if I'll be honest with everybody who is watching here, this is exactly how I would feel. So the only
True.
worthy I have for you is that my resources, Africa seems to be very interested with all resources that are coming from Congo. You love that. But what about me? What about my people? What about
Yeah.
stopping what is happening? Why not stabilizing the country and do business properly, but not, taking it on the back of the conflicts and what is happening in the country? So if anybody here was having also hard time to understand, you could try to stay in somebody's else's shoes, in Congolese shoes, that wow, this is actually, it is actually, yeah, yeah. And that's why we should come together and really protect one another. And that's why the solution, we always go back to the unity. We really need unity of our people. We really need unity for this continent as soon as possible, so that we may no more see people dying because of the blessings that God has given us and we are meant to enjoy, but we are dying because of it. So yeah, I think that would be yeah, a good note to end, my brother. I appreciate you for coming
Thanks so much.
on, and I appreciate for sharing your thoughts and your hearts. And I believe this will be very helpful to a lot of people who are watching here. We have actually 244 people watching, and we have like different platforms that are people are following us. So I want to appreciate you for giving me your time. I know I just told you today, and you are open to come. Thank you so much for coming up. And this is not the end. We're gonna work on something so that we may have these sessions as many times as we can to kind of like bring that knowledge of yours, even sometimes even talking about your books, because I know you wrote a couple books to talk about,
Yes.
those ideas and things that you're talking about for the benefit of our people. Yeah,
I appreciate you, brother. Peace and love. Thank you very much.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Cool. Right.
All right, people. Well, that was a very productive session, and I believe for you as well, it has been productive for you. Once again, I appreciate you guys for coming here and to join this conversation. It is very important for our continent and for our people to have this conversation. Very important, very important, very, very, very important, because this is the only way we could learn from one another. This is the only way we could actually ignite the fire inside of us, and that zeal to just bring about change, in our countries and in our continent. That's what I wish, and I hope that you guys are wishing for the same thing as well. This conversation for me was very important, because what is happening in Congo, it affects all of us. Right, what is happening in the continent of Africa, it affects all of us. Anything that is happening in Ethiopia, it's happening in Niger, it's happening in Uganda, in every single country. It affects all of us. Why? Because we are so very connected, guys. We are actually connected spiritually because we're one people, and we're connected physically as well. But we don't see that, and that's why we keep on struggling, because we are not accepting the fact that we are one people. We're not embracing that. Okay, perhaps we as a people we embrace that, but the powers who do not embrace that. Division of Africa, division of our countries and our people, it's a multi-billion dollar business to some people in the continent. Remember the third enemy I spoke about. Third enemy, I said those who are exploiting the continent. There could be both domestic and international enemies. All of them. That's what I say the third enemies of this continent. The first enemy, our mindset, our mentality. We work on that. I think a lot of problems that we're dealing with in the continent will come to an end if we work on our mentality. Will really literally come to an end. We need to work on our mentality. And I need to finish with that note, dressing out these three enemies of Africa. We need to work on our mentality, because I believe that will bring the change to so many issues. Okay, why do I believe that? Maybe I should state that. I believe in that because personally, when I began to change my mindset towards certain things, my life began to change. That sometimes I'm not gonna need to do something to bring about change, but I'm just gonna need to think differently to bring about change. If I am stressed, sometimes I don't need to go to a doctor to pay extra money in order to be less stressed. But I just need to change my perspective and how I think about things and how I approach them to bring about change into my life. So that's what I'm trying to say, that we need to change our mindset on how we think about Africa, on how we think about this beautiful continent. We need to change our mindset in order for everything to change. But it changed, because if I was looking at you like my enemy, if I change my mindset that is my brother, is my neighbor, I already solved the solution. I don't need anything else. And that's the same way we should change our mindset towards each other, towards our people. Because at the end of the day, people who are killing each other in the eastern side of Congo are our people, both victims and those who are shooting at or killing. They are Africans. No matter what you say, but they are African. So killing should never be justified. Should never be justified. We cannot justify the killing. We cannot. No matter what, we cannot justify. Because the outcome of that is not beautiful, guys. The outcome of that is really, it's bad. If we begin to justify killing, then um, we're not gonna have no people. We're not gonna have like 10 million dead or 1 million dead, but we'll have millions of millions dying, every single day, and that's not what we need. That is not what we need. We need to bring about change. We need to bring about change, and we are responsible. We are responsible. We need to bring about change. You are responsible. I am responsible. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this has been productive session for you as well. See, we have 237 people watching, and I want to appreciate everybody who joined on X, on Facebook, on YouTube and everywhere. I appreciate you guys for joining, and yeah, it means a lot. And we're gonna keep on having these conversations. So stay right there, don't go nowhere. I'm gonna have very interesting conversation coming up. Actually, she texted me back. This is the Obasanjo's daughter. I had an opportunity to meet her last year when I was in Kenya. She was also invited there. We're there to open up the Patrice Lumumba Foundation, and oh, okay, it's good. So she replied. She said, "Let's arrange time. An evening this week could work as I'm traveling to South." Yeah, this is good. So this week, I can set it up either tomorrow or even on Wednesday. I think yeah, tomorrow sounds good. It depends on her time. But she wrote something very interesting on LinkedIn, and I want to bring her on to talk about this point that with everything that is happening in United States. She wrote something. So how should Africa respond? Are there opportunities amid the blizzard of executive orders? And then she talks about partnership. She talks about prosperity. She talks about protection or security, and so on and so forth. So I thought this will be really productive talk, and I'd love to come here and to have that conversation from her perspective, to kind of like get to know, and what she thinks about that, to kind of like take part of her brain, because she's also a writer. She writes books. So I think yeah, this is very important time to have these people like my brother King Kabala. He has his books as well. Oh, I forgot to ask him to mention it here. But Mr. Kabala, if you're hearing this out, please you send to me the links of everything, and I will attach them in the description of this video. Yeah. All right, guys. So this week we might have another conversation with Kofo Obasanjo, and I'm very excited about that. All right. Peace for as we end up, we're gonna pray for the peace of eastern side of Congo, and Africa in general. That God will restore peace, and will be used as the instrument of change. Not only us, but even the leaders who are actually sitting and standing there. God, I just pray that they'll be used as an instrument of change. The hearts will be turned, towards the love and peace and unity. And just think about our people. Think about what is actually affecting our people, and not just themselves. So God, I pray for that peace to happen. I pray for the families that they don't have places to stay right now. I pray for the protection. God, I pray for the restoration of peace in Congo in Jesus' name. God, I pray for the restoration. I pray for the wisdom to those who are in charge to really know what to do at this very moment, God, so that our people we may remain at their places, at their home, and just enjoy the beautiful countries that you've given to us. God, I thank you, and I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Guys, I appreciate. I'll see you another time. It's been 2 hours and 30 minutes, but I appreciate you guys for joining here. All right. I'll see you guys very soon. God bless.